The old women in the village had a saying: "Some children do not belong entirely to this world. They arrive like morning dew, beautiful, unexpected, and gone before you have fully appreciated them." Ngozi had heard that saying all her life and never understood it, until the night she walked into the river. Not to die, no, she had simply run out of places to sit with her grief. The river was the only thing that would hold her without asking questions. She waded in up to her knees, raised her face to the sky, and screamed at the moon. Every prayer she had ever swallowed, every tear she had refused to cry in public, every hollow morning she had woken up and dragged herself into another day that looked exactly like the one before. She screamed until her voice cracked. And then the water around her ankles began to glow. Stay with me, dear friends. This is a story about love so fierce it frightened even the spirits. It is a story about the kind of jealousy that grows silently, like roots under a house, and only reveals itself when the walls begin to crack. If you have ever loved someone with your whole life, stay right here. This story is for you. And please, if you enjoy it, leave a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight, and tell me where in the world you are watching from. Now, let us begin. Ngozi was not the kind of woman people expected to break. She was strong in the way that village women are trained to be strong, quietly, without complaint, in the spaces between hard work and harder silence. She had a back that could carry impossible loads. She had hands that had learned to wring comfort out of very little. And she had a smile she wore in public like a second skin, even on days when everything underneath it was unraveling. Her husband, Chukwuemeka, had left her the way a wound leaves a scar, not all at once, slowly, piece by piece. First, the warm looks disappeared, then the conversations. Then he started sleeping with his back facing her, a whole ocean of cold sheets between them. By the time he finally packed his belongings and told her his new woman in the next town was already carrying his child, Ngozi had already been grieving for 2 years. She had loved him. God, how she had loved him. But the village did not care about love. The village only counted children. 11 years, no child. That was all they saw when they looked at her. That was the only story they told about her. Ngozi, the empty one. She tried everything. Every herb the old women recommended, every prayer circle, every journey to distant shrines. She drank bitter things, she fasted, she cried in places where nobody could hear her. She bargained with God in the quiet of midnight when the whole world was asleep and only she lay awake staring at the ceiling, counting all the ways her life had refused to become what she had imagined. The morning Emeka left, she did not eat. She did not speak. She sat outside her door and watched the sun travel slowly across the sky from one side to the other. And when darkness came, she stood up without knowing where she was going. Her feet carried her to the river. The river that ran behind the village had a name nobody used anymore. The elders called it Omin, the mother water. People said it was old, older than the village, older than memory itself. Children were warned never to swim there after dark. Women were warned never to go there alone. Ngozi knew all of this. She went anyway. She waded in until the water reached her knees. It was cool and alive against her skin. The moon above was full and watching. And then she opened her mouth and everything she had been holding inside came pouring out. She screamed at the sky. She begged. She bargained. She was not even sure who she was speaking to anymore. God, the river, the moon, some unnamed force in the universe that had decided her arms would always be empty. "Give me a reason," she cried. "Give me just one reason." The water began to glow. It was not a frightening light. It was warm, the color of evening sunlight rising up from somewhere deep below the surface. Ngozi stumbled backward, but she could not move. The glow gathered itself, it rose, and standing in the middle of the river, as though she had always been there, was a woman unlike any Ngozi had ever seen. She was tall, ageless, her skin shimmered like moonlight on still water. Her hair flowed around her even though there was no wind. Her eyes were the deep, patient color of the river at its calmest. In her arms was a baby girl. The baby was impossibly small. Her skin was dark and smooth and perfect, and around her tiny left wrist was a thread, thin as a breath, golden as sunrise, glowing softly against her skin. "My name is Uzo," the woman said. Her voice came from everywhere at once, from the water, the air, the inside of Ngozi's own chest. "I have guarded this river since before your grandmother's grandmother drew her first breath. I have heard you crying, Ngozi. Every night for 11 years I have heard you." Ngozi trembled so hard her teeth knocked together. "Do not be afraid," Uzo said gently. "Open your arms." She placed the baby against Ngozi's chest. The moment that small body settled into her arms, something inside Ngozi that had been broken for a very long time quietly clicked back into place. The baby opened her eyes. They were brown and deep and full of something ancient. Ngozi's tears fell on the baby's face. "She is yours," Uzo said. "Her name is Aku. She is your answered prayer made flesh." "How?" Ngozi breathed. "Your love called her into being," Uzo said simply. "Your grief and your love together. There is no stronger prayer in any world." Then Uzo's face shifted. Not cold, but solemn. "There is a condition, Ngozi, and you must hear it clearly." Ngozi held Aku tighter. "Tell me." Uzo raised one glowing finger and pointed at the golden thread around the baby's wrist. "That thread connects her to both worlds, to yours and to mine. It is what keeps her here, in human form, breathing human air, living a human life. It must never be caught. Not by accident, not by malice, not for any reason under the sun or moon." Uzo's eyes deepened. "If that thread is severed, the river will call her home, and no force in this world will be able to hold her back."
Ngozi's eyes flew to the tiny glowing thread. "I will guard it with my life," she said immediately. "I swear it." Uzo nodded slowly. "I believe you." Then she paused. Something crossed her face, a shadow heavy with knowledge. When Aku reaches the age of 17, something will stir. The world will try to reclaim what it thinks was never meant to be yours. She stepped back. The glow around her began to pulse. "Prepare your heart." "What will stir?" Ngozi cried. "Tell me what to prepare for." But the light swallowed Uzo whole. The river went dark. The water was still. The moon looked down, silent and knowing. Ngozi stood there with a baby in her arms and a warning she did not fully understand. She walked home. She did not sleep that night. She sat in the center of her room, the lamp burning low, Aku sleeping peacefully against her chest, that golden thread catching the light with every small breath the baby took. And Ngozi made every promise a mother can make inside the cathedral of her own heart. "Whatever comes, I will face it for you." Aku grew like a flame, bright, warm, drawing people toward her without trying. By the time she was walking, Ngozi had learned to dress her in long-sleeved clothing, always. The thread on her wrist could not be hidden forever. People would notice the golden glow if they looked closely enough. But Ngozi kept it covered whenever strangers were near. The villagers noticed other things about Aku instead. The way seeds she touched seemed to sprout faster than normal. The way sick animals in the compound recovered when she was around. The way she would sometimes stop in the middle of a sentence and stare at the sky, then quietly say, "Mama, go and check on Mrs. Okafor." And Ngozi would go and find the old woman at the bottom of her stairs, having tripped and unable to get up. Word spread, the way it always does in small places. The girl is special. By the time Aku was 10, people were calling her a child of blessing. They would stop Ngozi in the market. "Your daughter prayed over my son's wound and by morning it had healed. Your daughter told my husband not to take that road yesterday and we heard there was a terrible accident on that very road. Your daughter, Ngozi, your daughter." Ngozi listened to all of it with a smile that never fully reached her eyes, because she remembered what Uzo had said. The world will try to reclaim what it thinks was never meant to be yours. And Aku had something else that set her apart from every other child in the village, the thread. As she grew older, it grew with her, and its glow became impossible to ignore. People who caught a glimpse of it by accident would blink and look away, unsure of what they had seen. Aku herself regarded it with quiet wonder. She never tried to touch it, never tried to understand it beyond what her mother had told her. "It is your life. Guard it. Do not let anyone near it." "Why, Mama?" Because it is precious. Because not everything precious can be explained. Because I said so, my love. Aku would nod her head and accept this, the way children accept the laws of the world they are born into, curiously, without argument. She had friends, 3 girls her age who had grown up alongside her, Adana, Priye, and Kosi. They were inseparable in the way only childhood friends can be, threaded through each other's daily lives like the warp and weft of the same cloth. Also Ngozi believed. What she noticed, quietly over years, was how the attention around Aku changed something in those 3 girls. It was subtle at first, the way Adana would go quiet when someone praised Aku in front of them, the way Priya stopped celebrating Aku's predictions and started saying things like, well, she probably just guessed, the way Kosi's eyes would harden when people parted in the market to let Aku through with reverence. Ngozi pulled Aku close one afternoon when the 3 friends had gone home. My child, she said carefully, friendship is a beautiful thing, but even beautiful things can grow thorns. Aku frowned. What do you mean, Mama? I mean that sometimes the people who love us also resent us, not because they are evil, but because love and envy can live in the same heart at the same time. She paused. Be careful of your friends. Aku shook her head softly. They would never hurt me, Mama. Ngozi looked off her daughter's earnest face and wished deeply that she could believe it. She tightened her hand gently around Aku's wrist, over the thread. Whatever happens, protect this. Protect it the way you would protect your own heartbeat. I promise, Mama. The year Aku turned 17, the drought came. It had not rained in 4 months. The crops turned to dust. The river ran thin. Animals grew lean and restless. Women walked 3 times the usual distance to find water. The village elders held meetings. They prayed. They called on tradition. Nothing answered. Then one evening, Aku walked to the edge of the dry riverbed, sat down on the cracked earth, and began to sing. It was a low song, wordless and ancient, something she had never been taught and could not have explained. The air shifted, the sky thickened, and by morning, rain poured down in rivers. The whole village stood in the downpour, laughing, crying, raising their faces to the water. They sang Aku's name. Inside the house, Adana, Priya, and Kosi stood watching through the window. She called the rain, Kosi said flatly. She always does something, always. Adana said nothing. She only watched Aku standing in the rain, arms spread wide, face turned upward, laughing. And Adana's hands curled slowly at her sides. If we could take the gift from her, Adana said quietly, everyone would stop looking at her like that. Priya turned. How would you take a gift? Adana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I heard Ngozi tell the market women never to touch the thread on Aku's wrist. She said it is where her power lives. The 3 of them looked at each other, and something dark and decisive passed between them in the silence. Ngozi had a habit. Every year, on the morning of Aku's birthday, she rose before sunrise and went to say thank you at the river. It was her private ritual, her offering of gratitude to Uzo, to the water, to whatever force had delivered her daughter into her arms. The morning of Aku's 17th birthday, she kissed her daughter's sleeping face, whispered, I love you more than I can carry, and walked to the river. She did not know she was leaving the door open. Adana knocked first. Aku opened the door, warm and still sleepy, and smiled to see her 3 friends standing there in the early morning light. Happy birthday, Priya sang, holding a small parcel. We have something for you, Kosi said, her eyes bright with something Aku could not name. They came inside. They sat together. They talked the way they always had. Aku laughed and felt that familiar ease she always felt with them, the safety of long knowing, of shared years. Let me braid your hair for your birthday, Adana said eventually. Come and sit here. Aku sat in front of her. Adana began working through her hair, slowly, deliberately. Priya sat beside Aku. Kosi knelt in front of her, pretending to look at the floor. Then Aku felt it. Fingers around her wrist. She looked down. Kosi's hand had closed around her arm. Her sleeve had been pushed back. The golden thread glowed between Kosi's fingers.
No, Aku said. Her voice dropped. Kosi, no. It will only take a second, Adana said from behind her. Her voice was strange, hollow. Let go of me. Aku tried to pull away. Priya grabbed her other arm. Please, you don't understand. That thread is my life. If you cut it, something terrible. Scissors, Adana said quietly. Kosi raised them. Please, Aku begged. Her voice broke. Please, we have been friends since we were children. Please, I love you. Don't do this.
For one moment, one long, fragile moment, Kosi hesitated. Tears ran down her face. Her hand trembled. Then Adana said, "Do it." And Kosi cut the thread. The golden light exploded out of Ako's wrist like breath leaving a body. The sound that followed was not a sound from any human world. It was deep and liquid and ancient, a groan from the belly of the river itself. The walls of the room vibrated, the floor shook, the lamp went out, and Ako collapsed. Not slowly, all at once, like a puppet whose strings had been severed. She was on the floor before any of them could move, and she lay still with a stillness that was not sleep. It was the stillness of somewhere else, the stillness of a place between. The three girls backed against the wall, screaming. At the river, Ngozi felt something tear through her chest. She ran. She found Aku on the floor. She dropped beside her and gathered her daughter into her arms, and the scream that left her body came from a depth she had not known she possessed. She pressed her ear to Aku's chest. She felt for breath at her lips. She shook her gently, then desperately. Then she simply held her and rocked her the way she had when Aku was a baby, as though the muscle memory of comfort could still reach her wherever she had gone. The three girls cowered in the corner. "What have you done?" Ngozi's voice was not raised. It was something worse than raised. It was scraped clean. They couldn't speak. They could only cry and point at where the thread's light had faded from the floor. The room filled with warmth. Uzo came through the walls like water through cracked earth. She was enormous. Her presence filled the space until there was no room for air. Her eyes had none of the gentleness they had held 17 years ago at the river. She looked at Aku. She looked at Ngozi. "It has happened," Uzo said. "What was foretold." "Bring her back," Ngozi said immediately. No pleas, no preamble, just the flat, absolute demand of a mother. "Bring my daughter back." "There is a price," Uzo said quietly. "Name it." Uzo knelt beside them both. "One life for another. Yours in exchange for hers. That is the only currency the spirit world accepts." Ngozi did not pause. She did not look away. She did not even seem to need to think. "Then take me." "Mama." Ako's lips moved, the faintest whisper from somewhere between worlds. "Mama, no." "Take me," Ngozi said again. Her voice did not crack. "She is 17. She has not yet begun. I have lived. I have loved. I have had 17 years I was never supposed to have, and every single one of them was enough." She smoothed Aku's hair with a shaking hand. "Take me. Let her live." Uzo was still for a long moment. Then, "There is another way." Ngozi looked up. "If Aku returns," Uzo said slowly, "she returns as a full human. The thread will not be remade. The gifts go with it. No visions, no healings, no rain songs. She will be an ordinary young woman." "Yes," Ngozi said before Uzo finished speaking. "Mama," Aku's lips moved, the faintest whisper from somewhere between worlds. "Mama, let her finish." "I don't need to hear anything else," Ngozi said firmly. "She can live without gifts. She cannot live without a mother. I know this from my own life." She pressed her lips to Aku's forehead. "And I will not have her know that grief if I can prevent it." Uzo placed her hand gently over where the thread had been on Aku's wrist. The golden light returned. Softer now, a faint mark on the skin, like the memory of a scar. Not a thread anymore, just a reminder. Aku gasped. Her chest rose, her eyes flew open, and the first thing they found was her mother's face. "Mama, I am here."
They held each other on the floor for a long time. Uzo rose to her feet. She turned to the three girls. Adana, Priye, and Kosi had not moved from the wall. They stood pressed against it, faces wet, shaking from something that had gone far beyond what they had imagined they were doing. Uzo regarded them with eyes like deep water. You have shown this world what envy does when it stops asking permission. You had something rare in that girl. You had her trust, her love, 17 years of it freely given, and you traded it for one moment of wanting to be the ones that people praised. The three girls wept openly now. Kosi had slid down the wall to the floor. We didn't mean, Priye started. You meant enough to pick up the scissors, Uzo said, not cruelly, simply. She raised her hand, 3 flashes of quiet light. When the girls looked at their own hands, their palms bore the mark of what they had done, a pale, hairline scar across each palm in the shape of scissors. It would never fade. Every time they raised their hands in greeting, in prayer, in work, they would see it. Let that be your memory, Uzo said. Not a punishment, a responsibility. Carry it honestly. She looked once more at Ngozi and Aku, still holding each other on the floor. My work is finished, she said simply. And she was gone. Aku healed slowly, not from physical injury, from the kind of grief that comes from discovering that people you loved were also capable of this. It took time. But the thing about grief is that it moves, slowly, stubbornly, but it moves. Ngozi cooked for her, sat with her, talked to her about nothing on the evenings when the nothing was exactly what was needed. And on the night that Aku cried about her gifts, the healings she could no longer do, the visions that no longer came, Ngozi held her until the crying stopped. You are always more than the gifts, she said. The girl who brought them was never the same as the gifts themselves. Aku looked at the faint golden mark on her wrist. What am I now, Mama? Mine, Ngozi said. Completely and only mine. Is that not enough? Aku leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. Yes, she said quietly. That is everything. As for Adana, Priye, and Kosi, they lived with what they had done in the way that people live with regret when there is nowhere to put it down. They never stopped seeing the mark on their palms. They never stopped understanding what it meant. And with time, slowly, stumblingly, imperfectly, they tried to become different people than they had been in that room with the scissors. Some days they managed it. And perhaps that too is enough. Ngozi and Aku farmed together, laughed together, grew old together in the slow, unhurried way of people who had decided that ordinary life, lived with love, is not small. Every morning, Ngozi walked to the river and said, "Thank you." And some mornings, she could have sworn the water glowed. The thread that held Aku was gold, but the thread that saved her was something else entirely, the kind that cannot be seen or caught, the kind a mother weaves through years of sacrifice and love that asks for nothing back. That thread does not break. Not even death knows what to do with it. Guard what is precious, not just with your hands, with your choices. And be very careful what you reach for in jealousy. Sometimes, the thing you break in another person is something you needed yourself. And that, my dear, dear friends, is our story for tonight. Did it move you? Did it speak to something in your own life? Then please, do not let it end here just with you. Share this story. Press the like button if it touched your heart. And tell me, leave it in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from tonight? And who is the person in your life that loves you the way Ngozi loved Aku? I read your comments. I see your names. You are not watching alone. Thank you for sitting with me for these few minutes. Your time is precious and I do not take it for granted. Until next time, protect what you love, release what you cannot control, and please, please, Do not let jealousy write your story. I will see you in the next one.